Literally. I mean, which is good for other people, I guess, that needed help in all of those other towns. But he could have just said, I'm still working on things. I don't know anything yet. Like, you can stay in contact while you're figuring shit out.
What? No, you can't.
John Winchester way.
It is not the John Winchester way.
Gotta have a little trademark symbol after that.
That is unfortunately true.
It's very nice of him to leave us his journal, though.
Yeah, I mean the journal. I'm still mad, Francis. You haven't heard episode 4 yet, but in episode 4, I got really mad about John and his journal because of the dumb exorcism that they do in Phantom Traveler, where they have to like pull the demon out and then send it to hell. I'm like, that's the most useless exorcism. There's no situation in which that would be helpful, considering in literally every other episode there's a more direct exorcism that exists. I'm like, John is an irresponsible mentor and father for not having a more direct, more useful exorcism in his journal.
It's like he went to, I don't know, Hunter Google and picked the first exorcism he could see.
The most useless one he could find. And I get that demons aren't a super big problem at any point before season 1. Basically, anytime, like, pre-season 2, demons are a very rare thing to have to deal with, even for hunters. However, Bobby didn't have, like, an easier exorcism in all of the time that you worked with Bobby, because he has them now, for sure.
He was testing them.
Only useless exorcisms in the journal.
I told him, like, almost right away that it was a demon.
Ooh.
So, like, he had all these 20 years to, like, find a really good exorcism. And he probably told Bobby in the beginning, too, like, hey, help me find it.
Yeah, I'm sure at one point him and Bobby had a couple of beers and talked about how Bobby's wife got killed by a demon, and John was like, yeah, my wife also got killed by a demon, and they should have, that's the time where you swap exorcisms.
It'd be funny if he jotted down the exorcism as a reminder to never use it, and just never wrote anything else in the journal.
And then that's what you leave your children as their sole source of information in an age that exists before internet was super readily available.
I'm just imagining John, like, waking up in his truck or whatever, and he's just like, oh, wait! Oh, they'll be fine, they'll be fine.
I mean, to be fair, another possibility is that there was a better exorcism, like, farther back in the journal, and Sam just didn't flip back that far, like he found the first one in the book.
It was a pretty tense situation.
I had so many issues with everything that happened on that plane. Like, I just recently watched the episode where we met Henry Winchester, John's father, and got some, like, more background on John. I guess we can talk about that a little bit. Like,
daddy issues.
The daddy issues are real.
Runs in the family.
Yeah.
The difference, though, is that Henry probably would have been a much better dad if he had actually been.
Oh, yeah. Henry seemed like he was a good dad up until the point where he got sucked into 2013 and then died there. But Henry just kind of disappeared from John's life without any explanation as far as John was concerned when John was like 4. And we don't know anything about John's mother at all. I just assumed that she was dead and that it was just the two of them. That was the vibe I had.
Where's John?
Unclear. But they literally never mentioned his mother once in the entire show.
Did he just, like, raise himself, this, like, grouchy 4-year-old with stubble?
I have no idea. I have no idea. And Sam and Dean are named after Mary's parents.
Yeah.
Which, I mean...
They never really mention a grandmother.
No, they don't. If she wasn't gone when John was a kid, then she was definitely gone by the time Sam and Dean was a kid, or else why not just leave the kids with her, you know?
Yeah, like, if they had any members of the family, then John was just isolating them from them.
Very much, yeah.
Another bad dad thing.
Yeah. The Winchesters were just a family that was not destined to be at all happy ever, I think. Every time anybody's happy, it's repaid in like 8 times the amount of misery. It's not even worth it sometimes. Sometimes when I'm watching, I have to stop. I'm just like, they're happy, but at what's the cost? It's so high.
Please, just give us, like, one good moment that lasts for, like, 2 episodes? Maybe 2?
Did I even want to enjoy the good times? Were they worth this? Yeah, I just wish we'd ever found out more, because aside from, like, Ellen saying that she'd heard that John was doing stuff, we don't know what any of the stuff John was ever doing was. Like, we know he kind of figured out that there was other kids and other families that had the same thing happen to them that happened to Sam and Mary, and John had kind of figured that out, that there was a pattern there. I mean, that took him a whole nother person in their immediate vicinity dying. Sorry, Jess. But he did figure that out, but then after that, there's, like, beyond that, we just don't know what John was doing or where he was, except for that he, you know, showed up in Lawrence and didn't talk to them.
Shocking.
with the cases he does send them on, like, it just seems like he's sending them on cases to keep busy, or like he's like, I would usually go check this out, but I'm busy doing an unknown thing that no one can ever know.
Sketchy demon stuff.
I guess I'll just send my sons to go see. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we'll do a more in-depth on like why John's a bad dad. But I guess the summary of this episode is we don't know where John was, but he was a bad father for being there and not answering the phone.
Oh, you can go on your revenge thing, but please at least talk to your sons.
Honestly, it sets such a bad example that when Jess died, like, Sam was just like, of course I'm gonna go do exactly the same thing. Like, of course I'm just gonna go full revenge mode. I don't care about anyone or anything else. Who cares about anyone else living or dying? I need to go get revenge. Like, of course that's Sam's response. Like, that was all he knew growing up. He didn't know literally anybody else in the world, let alone, like, as a parenting strategy or a model for behavior.
Friends.
Literally. Not allowed to have friends, not allowed to have any sort of stability. Just revenge and monsters and darkness. Except for what little normalcy Jean provided him.
I do feel at some points like John did treat them like they were cadets in the military. Giving them orders, telling them, what they can and can't do, giving them weapons.
I've always wondered when they started calling John Sir, because they both do it so naturally. I know that's like a thing in a lot of places. When they address him and they use Sir like they're in the military. I mean, John was in the Marines, so I guess it makes sense that he got that way, but it's still horrible.
In a crisis, he might, like, default to his military training.
Yeah, I guess when he's like, I need to train my kids to be tough, I mean, I guess it makes sense that he went back to his roots in the military, but it's still horrible. That's not a good way to raise children.
It's not, especially when in Scarecrow, when John calls him to tell them, like, California, or he didn't
even say, they just figured that out.
Like, I'm doing something I found about the demon, but here I have a case for you guys, go do it. And Dean takes over the phone, and he's like, hey, Dad, like, where are you? What's going on? And instantly, in like 0.2 seconds, Dean's face goes from like concerned son to like a cadet. He's like, yes, sir.
Yeah, he sits up straighter, even though he was like just asleep.
Yeah.
Like, Sam was preparing to argue with him, but
Sam was arguing with them.
Yeah. I guess Dean's been a bit more conditioned.
Dean just is less likely to backtalk.
Because he was the older one, he always had to be more responsible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Something Wicked, John fucked Dean up for life, pretty much, in that one episode when they were kids. Like, his response to Sam almost getting eaten or dead or whatever it was that thing was doing to him. I mean, sucking out his soul or whatever. John's response of yelling at Dean and telling Dean that he was a failure and it was his fault when, like, Dean's also a child and you just left your children unattended for several days. Like,
and this was the thing that you were tracking. Why didn't you know it was coming here?
Yeah, that showed Dean that if he ever didn't listen, then something bad happened, and that was the lesson he took from that. And so, yeah, he's not in the talking back or the rebelling. He lost that, I wouldn't say lost the spark to do it, but, like, he was conditioned that if he did that, then something bad was gonna happen to Sam, who's the only person he, like, really cares about in the whole world. Anyway, does anyone else have anything they want to add that we haven't talked about? I know we just covered a lot and discussed a lot and went on some tangents.
I think I've said most of what I want to. Like, John's kind of more of a plot device than a person. He exists to affect the main characters.
Yeah, definitely. I wish we knew more specifics because, there's just not a lot to go on.
Like, the first season is shaped by them looking for him. The second season is shaped by them grieving him and figuring out how to live without him.
Yeah, pretty much. Francis, was there anything that you wanted to add?
I think we covered everything basically from season 1. We didn't, like you guys said, we didn't get much from him besides, questions basically, and throughout the later seasons we only learn like his past, when he first met Mary, so it's like we don't know a lot from what the boys have seen.
Yeah, I wish in season 2 we had gotten more answers about what exactly it was that John was doing, because I want to know where he was. We just don't know that much, unfortunately. So that's it for this week. So thank you so much to our guests for their thoughts and feelings and passions this week. If you want to give your social media or any other plugs, please feel free to do so now. Meredith, do you want to go first?
Yes, I'm at Shades of Deianira at Tumblr and Instagram, and if you go there, you'll see lots of drawings for the fantasy novel I'm writing.
Amazing. And Francis, how about you?
I have a Twitter. It's Destiel 1993, and I'm on TikTok at Let It Be Love _
And I recommend going and following her at those places because there's some good stuff happening there.
I've been KJ. You can find me on all the social media platforms at Life Messes of KJ. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can contact me directly or you can reach out through the podcast social media. You can find the podcast and email us at supernaturalopinionspodcast@gmail.com, at SVN Opinions Pod on Twitter, Supernatural Opinions Podcast on Facebook, and at Supernatural Opinions Pod on Instagram, and Supernatural Opinions Podcast on Tumblr. And if you could subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to this podcast, that really helps people to find us. And if you want to hear more of me and my thoughts, you can check out my other podcast, Series of Opinions, available on all the same places as this one. Thank you again to Faith Ebert for our logo. This episode was written, produced, recorded, and edited by me. And special thanks to our guests. And as always, keep fighting and carry on.